On this episode of AV Week, we talk about fostering co-opetition, drilling down into 4K over the network, and dealing with sexual harassment in the AV industry. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 342, recorded Friday, March 16th, 2018. Open, honest.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Peerless AV, the official outdoor display provider of Daytona International Speedway, and by HD Base T.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to talk about the news and information that we have gathered this week, first and foremost, her name is Penny Sittler. She is from Draper. How are you, madam?
I'm doing great. I didn't know I was first and foremost, though.
Well, you are. Yeah.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Also with us is Ms. Margot Dewacki from AV Technology. How are you, ma'am?
I'm excellent now that I'm with you all. So
you're awesome. And also Matt Scott's here. So
wow, thank you.
Matt Scott.
What a kind intro.
I did it on purpose. Matt Scott is from Omega Audio Video. He is also one of the founders of AVNation, and he's on the CEDIA board. And he's the host of our residential show, Resi Week. How's that?
But I'm not speaking on behalf of the CEDIA board at the moment. All my views are my own.
Yes.
Legal's now happy. We can continue.
Are any of your views ours? Have we ever dealt with that?
Ours?
Yeah.
No.
Good. Glad to know that. All right. First and foremost, story comes to us from our buddies over at Commercial Integrator. Westbury National, buddy Brock McGinnis, Westbury National, and Beckman Vidcom are teaming up at the Nova Center benefits. Nova Center, and they're working together. What was an interesting story here is we know the folks at Beckman. We obviously know the folks at Westbury National. This is one of those co-opetition stories that I really, really love in the industry. Backman was looking at the project, and it was a little bit big for them, so they partnered. Honestly, they partnered with Westcom with Westbury, just combine the two, to really, really kind of pull off a really rather remarkable job. When you go to the website, you click on the story from Commercial Integrator. The video from this and the pictures from this is absolutely phenomenal. Matt, I want to start with you because you are our residential and our resident integrator on this episode.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to jobs like this, how difficult is it to bring in another company and partner together on one of your clients?
You know, this is one of those feel good stories that I love, because this is what we need to see more of in the industry. And I had a conversation yesterday with a friend of mine who was talking about how he's starting his company and he's realizing that he needs strategic partnerships across the board to serve his clients. And this story is key to that because, you know, Backman is a great company, but they were too small for this. And by, dare I say, getting over themselves, getting over their ego, and not saying that they're egotistical or anything like that, but within the industry, we all have this, we're big enough, we're smart enough, we're powerful enough, we can do this ourselves. And realizing that they needed to partner with someone larger to achieve this, and then went out and did it, is fantastic and really what we need to see more of in the industry, because from a strategic partnership level, what we can achieve, you know, bringing in other partners, other pieces that help us facilitate that goal gets us better product in the end. And I think for too long, we've within the industry been a little short-sighted to that we'll look at what we can do and just, oh yeah, no, of course we can do that, and try to handle it in-house when maybe you need to bring in someone who does more broadcast or more intelligent lighting or whatever type of project you're working on. Recognizing that you have a deficiency in some way, shape, or form, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a part of what it is, to bring in partners and especially competitors to help you achieve a goal and put all your differences, all of your competitive aspects of running your own companies aside to achieve the goal for the client is what makes us as an industry look really, really good.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question at all?
Yeah, you absolutely did. You absolutely did. Penny, I want you to take it from the manufacturer side and either take it from Draper working together with other manufacturers, but also from the side of, to Matt's point, from a manufacturer's standpoint, supporting two customers of yours that are typically competitors, but in a project like this where you kind of have to work with both sides. How best do you guys do that?
We actually, over the last year or so, have been working really hard on building strategic partnerships and finding how we can do more together. And it's really exciting to me to see integrators doing this at the same time that we're working on it, and learn from their experience. And some of the partnerships that we've worked on actually are with people who are in certain settings are competitors.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Well, what's some of the hurdles that you guys had to overcome, especially in the early stages of that?
Well, it's building the relationship, as isn't it always?
Yes, it is.
And finding out how one another work. You're always matching up to somewhat disparate systems. So, and you do find that some partnerships work better than others.
Yeah, absolutely. Margot, coming at this from two different angles as well, both from the journalistic standpoint of covering a story like this, but also AV technology is predominantly geared towards tech managers. And in my head, and being a former tech manager, it makes sense that these folks, tech managers especially, may see this more often than the average consumer of AV technology. What are some of the things that tech managers can do to help foster this? And, whether it's, a $3 million brand new building that they have to have $2 million, $3 million worth of AV technology in, or it's a renovation where, you're still spending quite a bit of money and you have, to Matt's point, not only integrated lighting, but you also possibly have, a live staging and event set up, and you have multiple classrooms that are going to require control and automation, several different disciplines there. And not everybody is an expert at everything. So how do tech managers help foster and help bring together integrators that may be competitors otherwise?
Yeah, I'd love to start with that. And I had an amazing interview with the tech manager at the UNC Medical School, who almost spoke to this point completely, because they have a brand new medical school that's being completed in 2022. So a couple years out from now.
Good night.
But they're already planning it. I mean, it's a massive project in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, scenic Chapel Hill. And so from the ground up, they're thinking about every possible aspect, from needs analysis, risk assessment, from mass notifications to, everything, bandwidth, IT's involved, all the stakeholders, university professors, students. And when you have this kind of ground up approach, and it's unique, it's not every day that a medical school gets a brand new facility, but it's just a case study in an AV, a person who's in the AV department, an AV engineer and a tech manager, kind of leading the charge of how do we bring AV to the table as quickly as possible, as early in the process as possible. But it speaks to the point of when you bring out a very clear desire of what you want out of the project, I think that can help crystallize energy around some of the best possible partners for it. So maybe there is someone who has a specialty or best practice around live staging. Maybe there's someone who does lecture capture for this particular kind of medical school environment really, really well. So through, I think, just a clear, defined sense of what you're looking for, what you want. And of course, the for refresh cycles are 5, 6, 7 years, and they're trying to future-proof as best as they can, but trying to assert the importance and the meaning of AV in that particular example as early as possible, and just making it crystal clear that these are the core competencies that you hope to bring. So then, and shaking the tree and seeing what kind of best vendor partner you can have, and maybe they then have a a connection or a satellite of folks that they have worked with in the past on similar installations, so they've solved creative problems together, and then they bring that to you. So it's insight sharing, it's best practices sharing, it's lessons learned, it's sometimes hard-earned wisdom. So maybe they went with the flavor of the month. At some point, somebody that wasn't local, they couldn't have 24/7 access to support, and they learned through that they needed actually someone that was more local if they're doing something that they needed live event support, or they didn't have remote management at the time, and now they realize that they need that. So, I mean, that's sort of a broad way of answering that, but if it's not a new build, how does a tech manager play a role? I think also just being super honest and candid with what they want, and finding the people that are the best for that particular project. And I think we're seeing a lot more of that. I mean, you definitely have loyalty, obviously. Someone going back to Matt's company for the fact that they're exemplary, they provide reliable service. But you also do have folks that are in the position of saying, well, I have a school, I have a business, and this is my mission, and I have to support that. How can I do the best price negotiation for that particular project? And it might lead them down a different alley. So I think clarity, bringing that purpose up really up front in the process, being really transparent, open to new ideas. And then also, look at what happened with Avixa, Infocom pivoting into Avixa. There's more emphasis on integrated experiences. There was more emphasis on bringing in thought leaders from experiential design. So that's also very interesting to me, thinking about synergies and partnerships like this in Nova Scotia and the Halifax example. Maybe you're going to become, I don't know, you might need someone who can install a new LED wall, like we saw in the example of the Empire State Building. I think that was an electrosonic example, but maybe you're thinking about more experiential AV, and there's someone on the the projection mapping, or they're doing stitching software, and they might become an excellent resource for you. And I think that's what's really great about the moment of being with the Avixa community.
Yeah. Well, I would also echo your sentiment about being open and honest from the tech manager standpoint. It also goes to the integrator standpoint. They need to be open and honest about what they're capable of and what their strengths are. And honestly, to Matt's point, what their weaknesses are. And if they are weak in an area, but the integrator, the tech manager wants to go with you in your company and say, look, this is what I can do. This is what I can't do. However, I have partners, I have friends, I have colleagues that we can cooperate together to shore up some of our weak areas. So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think that was such a great point about that article. Wasn't the client, the end user, who was bringing in multiple companies to work together on something, and they just kind of had to tough it out. It was a company recognizing that they needed help and going out and finding a partner who is a competitor to work with them and help them and together pull off a really nice project.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's delve into the world of video over IP. This comes to us from AV Network, and the article is talking about, by Phil Hippensteel, is talking about 4K 60 in the network, and he goes on to talk about the article references several different technologies and several different areas. And Margot, I want to start with you on this. When it comes to all of the claims from several different purveyors, let's say, and purveyor can be either the source of the technology, in other words, the chip manufacturer, or the manufacturer, the integration, the device manufacturer, I guess is the best way to put that. When it comes to, whether it's 4K or it's 1080p, whether it's 10 gig or it's 1 gig, when it comes to designing these systems and ultimately putting them in, what is it that an integrator actually needs to know, and what do they need to worry about?
I mean, I think just going right to Phil Hippensteel's piece is probably the very best and most succinct way I could say that. I mean, just from my media perspective, I probably hear 10 conflicting claims a day, not just about 4K 60, but about various approaches, from different categories and different perspectives. And sometimes, one size fits none. So as Phil says in the piece, he offers the caveat that his comments are made within a provisional framework, but I think it's just really important to first start with the idea that the term zero latency, as discussed in the piece, is not only overused, but it's somewhat ill-defined. And from the integrator's perspective or the tech manager's perspective, it's misleading. So I think, looking at the categories of resolution, frame rate, bit depth, chroma subsampling, and compression methods, I think just taking that and asking what is required in terms of the quality of what's acceptable to you. So his conclusion at the sort of end of the piece, as it were, no spoilers, is that the enterprise video is perfectly acceptable at 420, but he gets there by bringing some of the sort of granular information that he explores through his testing lab. So he breaks down packetized for transmission, the 8-bit, 10-bit, and there's just excellent information. So, and he's in the IT department at Penn State Harrisburg, so he's most interested in what, even if you're using VLANs, what's going on with the trunks and the switches. And so his kind of ultimate claim is that it seems inescapable that mixing 4K with the traditional IT network will require some compression of the video, as is done with H.264 and 265. Yeah. But I think the most important point for me is always provide a space where people can share instead of saying, this is the definitive claim. I mean, obviously the sky is blue and, 2 + 2 = 4, but beyond the kind of, the non-immutable facts of the world, as it were, there's a lot of room for interpretation and a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of marketing speak that has been accepted as just fact. And so not only sometimes I don't want to get too down the rabbit hole of this, but I think the danger is just allowing the marketing speak to become the narrative, which is why it's useful for me to assign and commission pieces and invite as many diverse perspectives as possible so that you can read the different perspectives. You can say, hey, I just tried this out in my lab and this is what I discovered and this is why. And you see the thought process in a very transparent way. Yeah. So I feel very lucky to be able to do that. Like, hey, if you want to write about why you believe it must be this 10 gig scenario, why you think that it's actually more scalable at 1 gig, let's hash it out. The more, the better. The more conversation, the more even crosstalk and kind of spirited debate, the absolute better.
Yeah, absolutely. And Penny, I want to bring you in on this from a marketing standpoint. Something that Margot brought up was the confused marketing messages from competing manufacturers. So, as a manufacturer and as somebody who's responsible for their marketing, honestly, how do you cut through? Because let's be frank, Draper has competitors, right? There are folks who do what you do. And so, you guys have a responsibility to your owners to make sure that you are, a predominant manufacturer in a certain space. And you guys are across several spaces, but specifically here in AV, you can absolutely say that you are the best beyond any shadow of a doubt. You should use, Draper screens in every single application. And then somebody can say the exact same thing about your competitors. So how do you cut through with a marketing standpoint?
It is really hard. I feel that I have, as much as my responsibility to my company, a personal responsibility for integrity. And our company has also taken a really big stand on integrity in our data. So, we can talk about that our projection screens are ready for 8K, they're ready for 16K, and it's all true. Not that all the content and all the pipes and everything.
You're ready. The projector manufacturers aren't quite ready yet.
We're going to be able to display it when it's there.
Yeah.
But there is this huge issue about the integrity of the information, and we're looking at the data that others publish about their products, and we put their products through our tests and we say, I'm sorry, they don't have it right. And that's an issue everywhere.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely critical for marketers to address the market with truth and fact-based information. I was reading a piece this morning about how we're in the era of post-truth in the political context, and I don't want to be there in the marketing context.
I
but
don't
I'm
want to be there in
afraid
the
we'll
political
take it that way.
aspect either, just for the record.
Well, yeah. Sadly, we're there.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Scott, who is not in a post-truth political standpoint because he's in Canada.
Never. Valid.
Yeah.
We have our own truths.
A couple different. You do.
They're covered in snow.
You were with me at ISC, right?
I was.
And you and I ran into not a few, video over the network.
There was a couple.
Technologies and claims. So from the standpoint of you saw a lot of this stuff, but also from the standpoint of you've got to be the one putting the stuff in and supporting it. What is it that you need to know?
How much everyone's lying.
You're not going to find that out
because they're all lying in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
This is. I love these topics. I love these debates. But at the end of the day, every manufacturer, every spec is their interpretation of that spec. And if they're saying that they're going to do, this format uncompressed over this cable density, someone else is going to say that they're doing that same format at a different density that is the same to them. And from the integration standpoint, we just need to find the one that works for us and works for our clients, and find the product that does the least damage to our clients' networks in this frame point. The hardest thing that we deal with when we're looking at stuff like this is interpreting what our client thinks they need across a network versus what they actually need to have. Yeah. I met with a client last week who was adamant he needed 444. Almost no one needs 444 across a video over IP application. You just don't. But they were adamant they needed it. And their IT department was adamant that we not put more than, I don't remember what the actual number was, but essentially a bandwidth load that does not allow you to do 444 at all. The hardest thing for me though is at the end of the day, the numbers don't usually match up, no matter who's saying them. They just don't. And trying to interpretate what that means in a lab versus what that's actually going to mean in the field is two different things. And my problem is when I read things like what Phil wrote, it's very on point, but it's done in a lab. Mm-hmm. And what's done in a lab is not going to be reflective of a real world application in most situations. And
there's also a vast difference between what's done in a lab, done in the real world, and also done on a trade show floor.
Oh, 100%. And to circle back to your ISC lead in, trying to show a latency demo or anything like that on a trade show floor and expect that anyone's going to believe you is really comical.
No.
And it's the same as someone bringing you in to do an audio demo in a room that they've constructed on a trade show floor and say, "Oh, can you hear the clarity of that tweeter?" Like, no, I can't, because I can hear the popcorn machine down the hall. But thank you for your
and the sub next door. Yeah,
yeah. Like it just, I understand why you have to do it. I understand why you do it, but I've sat through more audio demos where someone was sitting beside me with a Bluetooth headset in their ear at Infocom and debating with a presenter on the quality of whatever they were listening to. Like, it just, come on. Seriously?
All right.
Uh-huh.
Context is key. I love that. And I think that's
exactly.
Context. So, and then we sometimes don't make it easy in that sense. Well, but the companies themselves have a right. I think it's incumbent on them to say, how can we allow you to try this out in your facility? Okay, maybe you're rolling out, you have, a bunch of new classrooms rolling out, you're interested in this. This is maybe, let's make it easy for you to see what it's like, how it can work within your organization, your bandwidth loads, your needs for your user base. And then, because even if they read the most wonderful article in AV technology, or they go to a trade show, you're not going to make a decision at that exact moment, pulling out the credit card, for this enterprise and like making the deal. But it plants a seed. It shows you what's possible. Hey, here's what's coming next. And, some companies like Extron, they don't announce a product until it's out, until it's shipping and ready. And so I think it does a disservice with, that kind of hype and marketing speak. But ultimately, I hope, and that's what I appreciate about Draper, is that opportunity to say, hey, we can rely on you as much as you can rely on us. So if we can make this a beta arrangement, you want to try this out, let's make it easy for you to train and see what it's like. Because every facility is different. Maybe a building was built in 1930. All of these things, context matters. So I think it's a lot of different pieces of the story, but ultimately every place has their own needs. So that's obviously the most key idea and takeaway for me.
Well, and especially when you're going into an existing facility, to try and spec that without being on site doing real world testing, because no matter how much information you're getting from your client, there's still going to be things that occur and things that happen that they're not ready for or weren't running when they gave you that test data. So you really have to, especially if you're dealing with something where you're trying to guarantee a certain quality level, a quality standard, and especially as we're moving into 4K and higher bit rates and everything else, you're going to have to do that on site. You're going to have to actually test that on site to make sure it works. Because a lot of times what you spec out in your engineering department is not how it's going to work once you actually show up.
Yeah. All right, guys. Last story here, and follow me along for a second here, because we're going to tackle a story that is a little difficult in general, especially for me. The story we're going to use is from DZ. Richard Meyer, award-winning architect, is actually stepping away from his company after being some sexual harassment charges got laid against him from through the New York Times. He said, quote unquote, he was deeply troubled and embarrassed by accusations of sexual harassment against him. He is temporarily stepping down. We have not covered this topic, sexual harassment and the Me Too movement in the AV industry, honestly, for a reason. I'll be very frank. I am a straight white male. I know that I am a lot of times I am not, the person to be covering this. That's why I'm very thankful that Penny and Margot are here to talk about this. But I can be, a support and an ear. Since the Me Too movement started, I've heard more stories that have pissed me off and made me sad for some folks that I know and I care a great deal about in our industry. So Penny, I want to start with you on this. Penny is deeply involved in the Women of AVIXA group. You're a longtime AV industry professional. First question is, when it comes to, anybody feeling uncomfortable or harassed, not even uncomfortable, I shouldn't even say that word. They are honestly being, put upon in a way that they should not be. What should they do?
For far too long, women in that situation, people, not just women, felt that they had to stay far too quiet. Me Too has opened the floodgates, and people are expressing what's happened to them, what their concerns and fears are, and they're being listened to. I just want to make sure that people who are in that situation keep speaking out, because now is the time. Things are changing. People are beginning to listen and give validity to those concerns. The stories are so sad, not just around sexual harassment, but Michigan State.
Yeah.
that people in power have taken so much advantage of those around them. But now is the time people need to speak up. If if two people have a story to share that's linked, they'll give validity to each other. And we need to listen. We need to not just write those things off. We need to not say, we can't afford for that person to leave. That's, when you have someone like Richard Meyer, there's a question, well, will his firm survive this? There could be a risk there.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the case of the I guess the story that starts it all, which is Harvey Weinstein, his company did not survive, or has not survived. Margot, I'm going to ask you a difficult question, and the reason I ask it is because of my admission when we started this. Is I understand where I am in this, right? But I'm also the father of an 11-year-old girl, and what can we do as guys?
Well, okay, go ahead. I just wanted to jump in because I'm so enthusiastic about you, because I think that bringing this up is so important, and I applaud you for wanting to talk about difficult things. Sometimes when things are complex and uncomfortable, our tendency is to compartmentalize, to distance ourselves and say, you know what, everybody else can figure it out. I support it, and I support a better outcome or a better tomorrow. But by actually having the uncomfortable conversations, we are working towards that. We're striving for it. And we're creating a more inclusive and open dialogue around it in which everybody's voices can be heard. So I applaud you for that. And I think it's wonderful. And to address the question, what can folks do? And I guess it's also interesting to kind of reframe it, because everybody has a role to play, every single person. So whether you're female, male, in the LGBT community, whatever your age is, your gender is, your orientation is, every single person has a role to play in a healthy community. So I think that's really where I'd like to start, because with the idea of the Me Too movement and how it can impact our audiovisual community, it's about not only making sure that folks who may have experienced some harassment or some untoward or some advances that were not, solicited by someone in power, someone to make them feel uncomfortable. It's about everybody creating a space where we have gender parity, where we have equal pay for equal work, where we have inclusion, so inclusive for age, gender, and experience levels, giving people opportunities, so that it's not necessarily just about harassment, but it's about that kind of hashtag that my friend and colleague Megan has a great blog on. I'll give Megan a little plug here on megandutta.com, but the hashtag Press for Progress. It's about, creating inclusive workspaces, for us, I'll tell you what that looks like for me on a daily basis. So if we're putting an event together, what do our panels look like? Are they representative of the industry? In some regards, that would mean that they would probably be 95%, white male. But in a sense, if we don't see it, we can't become it. So that requires extra work on my part to find the qualified, vetted, inspiring person that is worthy of the seat, but is also inclusive. So we all have a role to play in creating inclusive environments that are collaborative and that aren't dismissive of folks, that we can challenge stereotypes. And for me, again, that might mean maybe when you think of the terms like IT guy, for example, something so simple that it has become part of our vernacular and so easily used that I use it all the time. But in fact, two of my cover stories were female IT managers in 2017 for my magazine. So we have to challenge our own biases, challenge our own stereotypes, and think about the tiny little, almost imperceptible ways that we create either inclusive or sometimes dismissive or divisive spaces or areas. So how can we be more inclusive? And that creates that space where folks can share openly about, their own experiences, but also say, if something has happened to you, we have governing bodies, within AVIXA, the women of AVIXA, the women of digital signage, that we can share with each other and maybe ask for insight, ask for best practices, ask for solidarity and community. Yeah. And also I might add, it's really important to have mentorship. So in the sense of finding that person who may benefit from the experience you would have to share, but also say, oh, it might benefit you if you're thinking about your CTS exam. Here's, giving those ideas for furthering their career. And there's another term that's really popular right now for a good reason, but it's lift as you climb. So if you're on an ascendancy track and you're doing quite well in your position, who can you, bring with you? And I think that's also been a great shadow narrative of the Me Too movement, because folks are saying, this happened to me. I was harassed, I was dismissed, I was abused, or I was made invisible. When I was first getting into this industry, I sort of dealt with the kind of twin problems of being the only female, the only young, and when I really started in the industry, I was even before I graduated college, because I started reviewing high-end stereos when I was in University of Pittsburgh, listening, started with my love of, listening and getting more involved, and oh, I can get a paycheck for this. This is really cool. And something that I love to do. And so I was the only young female, so I was sort of dismissed in that regard. But then you're also assumed to not know anything. So if I were to event, and the first CEDIA I attended was in 2000, I think it was. But nobody really talks to you. So you have to deal with your own erasure. So you're both very visible and totally invisible at the same time. So we're in a way different space in that regard, but much more can be done. And, being open is the best policy. And sometimes it's good we can make mistakes too. We can say the wrong thing and we can own it. I've done it. We've all done it. So without the ability to speak and share, nothing's going to change.
Yeah. All right, Matt.
How do you close on me?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I wanted to give the women on our panel the first word. I'm not quite sure how I'm ending on you, but go ahead.
Just don't end. Just end now.
No, that'll work. When folks started feeling comfortable talking about the women that I know and I've known for 20 and 30 years, these stories that started coming out, and it makes me sad. It makes me mad a lot of times, because I'm with you, Matt. I don't understand how it happens. I don't understand the mentality of the people doing it. And again, these are stories that I will not repeat. But that's just, mind-bogglingly cruel. And, I'll just leave it at that. So, all right.
Tim?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you noticed how much this show has a theme? I wrote down the words back at the beginning when Margot said them about being open and honest.
Yes.
It's absolutely critical in this realm. It's critical in building our partnerships. It's critical in marketing our products and our services. It's so important the whole way.
And with that, Penny has just named our show. All right. That is going to do it. We have gone a little bit over our time, but I'm okay with that. I would like to thank all three of you for joining us. Miss Penny Sittler, I appreciate it. How can people get a hold of you and or Draper?
Well, I am on Twitter. I'm associated with the @Draper Inc. handle. You can always find us at draperinc.com for our website, which is new in the last few months. So be sure and check it out if you haven't yet.
All right, very good. And they'll also...
And look me up at Infocom.
At Infocom, absolutely.
And DSE.
And DSE in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, yeah. So
coming right up.
In Vegas, yeah, it's crazy. Ms. Duwahi, I appreciate you as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I look forward to our yoga class in
yes.
Infocom Vegas.
Okay, hang on, stop. Margot made reference to something.
No. You are going to that.
I know. I have to clarify off the air. My wife has got the brilliant idea that she wants to get me into yoga so I can lose some weight. So there you go.
AV tweeps out there, you know there's going to be a yoga class, but I do, for anyone that doesn't know, I also am a certified yoga teacher and a Qigong teacher, and I find that they're wonderfully complementary. So at a show, I usually...
To AV or to each other?
Staring at a screen, I do have a standing desk, but staring at a screen a lot of the day, I think it requires the neutral gaze of the yoga savasana. So it's very complimentary. But yeah, usually around a show, you can find me near the hotel pool doing some yoga and pulling. Usually it's my sales team because they're usually up for a challenge. So, but you can definitely find me at AV Technology Mag, and you can read Dr. Hippensteel's story on avnetwork.com. And he actually has a whole column called the Bite-Size Lessons in AV over IP. And they really are bite-sized. Most of the time they're just a page in length, and we really try to distill some of these ideas down that are easily digestible and shareable. So, and let me know, anyone who's listening, if you'd like us to tackle something very specific and technical in his lab. So I'll let him know.
All right,
thank you.
Very good. All right, Mr. Scott, how do people find you and or Omega Audio Videos?
You can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter, at Omega Audio Video on Twitter, or OmegaAudioVideo.com. But more importantly, check out my show on AVNation.tv. Yeah.
Comes your way every Wednesday. It's fantastic.
Every Wednesday.
And this week is
Mediocre
going to
at
be
best.
extra special.
It will be.
It will be
fantastic.
Because I'm
Yes. I know. It'll be crazy.
Yes, it'll be something. All right, my name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me on the Twitters, but go by the website if you would, please, avnation.tv. avnation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others. You will find Matt's program every Wednesday coming your way. Those are the 2 weeklies we have. Plus, we have a ton of monthly shows marketing the AV profession that looks at the business of AV and how to make your integration business better. All sorts of things, live staging and events. Also, when you're there, check out our underwriter section. These are the folks who help us and support us financially and help us bring you this show and help us go to DSE and Infocom and all the others. Draper is one of those, so we thank them for their support. But go by there and let them know you appreciate them helping AVNation. So all that and more at avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This has been AV Week.